What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining us today on Cinema Recap. Glad to have you here. So today we'll be recapping that comedy caper, Masterminds. Spoilers ahead. We open the film on a home video montage, one that shows us various kinds of robberies gone wrong. As we watch these thieves make fool of themselves, we get a voiceover from our movie's hero. He's an armored car guard, and he tells us that once upon a time, he used to wish that he might get robbed in the line of duty, also that he could test himself and prove to everyone how able he is. But these were heroic aspirations that he never got a chance to test out. That is until one fateful day in 1997. But we'll get to that a little later. For now, let's meet this protagonist, David Scott Gant. One look at this guy and you might think that he's not exactly fitting that hero archetype, and you'd be right. From the Lord Farquaad haircut to the shorts, this guy doesn't look like your typical movie action hero. And he's not. When we meet him, he's busy idolizing a new woman he gets to work with, Kelly Campbell. And when I say idolizing, I mean that he straight up stares and gapes at her like she's the second coming. He's obsessed. On their first shift together, Kelly just casually asks David if he would be ever interested in robbing an armored car with her. Apparently, a huge heist went down about a month earlier at the exact same company that they work for, and from what she can see, it looks like it wouldn't be that hard.
Well, for one thing, we could get fired.
But Kelly doesn't give up. She and David hit the shooting range, where we see that she's a pretty good shot. David, though, as you might have guessed from taking one look at him, isn't. He's pretty useless, actually. But Kelly doesn't seem to care. She tells him what she would buy if they did rob that armored truck, trying to tempt him in any way that she can. David still turns her down, but it's obvious that he does have a crush on her, and that with a little more pushing, he might just say yes. Once David is finished with his shift, he heads home to meet up with his fiancée. They're due to be married in 2 weeks, and today is the wedding photo shoot. Now, if you need any more indication as to how weird David is, well, take a look at these photos and decide for yourself. Yeah, creepy is one word that comes to mind. It's the next day at work, and David is having lunch with Kelly, where he again starts to flirt with her. He doesn't get very far though, as soon their boss is interrupting him, lambasting him for not working hard enough. It's a bridge too far for Kelly, who takes this moment to announce that she doesn't want to work there anymore. She hates it.
Fire me, Ashley. Fire me.
Her boss doesn't want to fire her, but she kind of forces his hand when she throws her gun on the ground and it goes off, shooting out a window. Kelly seems thrilled at having gotten fired. David, though, well, he's kind of upset. Despite his engagement, he still has a pretty big crush on her. Such is this crush that David chases Kelly out of the office and asks for her number, just so they can maybe catch up one day. She obliges and writes her number on his arm. It's a little while later now when we meet a man by the name of Eugene Chambers. He's friends with Kelly, and one day they're sitting around watching the news when they see the story of the armored car that was robbed several months ago. Despite this guy getting himself arrested, Eugene still thinks that it's a wonderful idea to rob that armored car. He pulls Kelly up and tells her exactly this. She points out that she doesn't even work there anymore, so there's no point. But Eugene sees it as a good thing. All they need is a man on the inside, one who can do all the hard work. He asks if she knows anyone, and she tells him about David.
Does he like you, or does he like you?
As we all know, David is more than a little interested in Kelly. She tells Eugene this, and as far as Eugene's concerned, that's all he needs. This robbery is on. You know, once they get David on board. Kelly calls David and he turns up to meet her with roses, like it's a date. Never mind the fiancé that's at home waiting for him. But Kelly knows that they need David if they're gonna pull this job off. So she's nice enough about it, even a little flirty.
They're really lovely.
The two sit down and right away they get to business. Sitting behind Kelly is Eugene, and without turning around or telling David who he is or even showing his face, Eugene explains to David that they want to use his access to rob one of the vaults where he works. David is naturally a little suspicious about this, and Kelly quickly tells him that he can think about it. He doesn't think for very long though. We cut to later that day when David's helping his fiancée try on her wedding dress, but when he gets a call from Kelly,
It's a work thing.
he immediately takes it into the back room and out of sight. This time, Kelly decides to play her cards a little more aggressively. Shelba tells David that if he does this for her, the two of them can run away to Mexico, where they can sit on the beach, drink cocktails, spend long nights together, and you get the idea.
The beaches there, they're like Like powdered sugar.
Needless to say, this is all David needs to hear. With his fiancée just right outside the room, none the wiser, he eagerly agrees to help Kelly and Eugene rob this thing. What could go wrong? Before they do, we get a little training montage, just for comedy's sake, to show us that these guys are taking the job seriously, and to show us how easy a job it's gonna be. And it is too. It's only a couple days later when they decided to do that heist, and the plan is about as simple a plan as ever existed. David, having a key to that vault, simply walks in, unlocks it, and loads up the cash in the back of the van. Like, all of it. There's $17 million in there, so it takes him a bit, but he does it easily. A small hiccup occurs when one of the other security guards comes through, and when he spots him, he mistakes David's reason for being there, thinking he's on overtime and only stealing shifts. And that's it really. The guard leaves David to do it, and David gets about packing the rest of the cash up. When he's done, he quickly makes sure to get rid of all the security cameras in the vault, which is actually a pretty smart oh, wait, no, he accidentally left one behind. Oh well, that's just one mistake. Surely he isn't gonna make any, god. Nope, there he goes locking himself in the back of the van while still parked in the vault. At least that's his last mistake. For now. David still manages to wiggle through the small window enough to reach forward, hit the gas, and send the van flying out of the building onto the street and toward freedom. Shockingly too, the heist is a huge success, and they all get away scot-free. At least for now. It is a movie. We know there's more that's gonna happen. Probably not in David's favor either. From there, David meets up with Kelly where they discuss the next part of the plan. This is pretty much just David heading to Mexico to hide out for a little while until that heat is off him. Before he leaves, Kelly gives him a new ID with a new name, Mike McKinney. Remember that because it's going to be important later on.
Yeah, it's actually a real person. He's friends with Geppetto.
Meanwhile, the FBI are on the case. They're at the scene of the crime where they discover that David left behind one of the security tapes, although they mistake this as some kind of criminal mastermind mind game. From there, they decide to go and pay David's fiancée a visit, where they explain to her what has happened. She's speechless, too shocked to say much of anything, except fix the FBI agents with that crazy stare of hers. But enough of that. Let's pay David a visit. He's in Mexico at the moment, having the time of his life. He has all this money, and seemingly nothing to worry about. We get him in a big, nice hotel suite. He's going for swims, buying outrageous outfits. It's non-stop fun and games for David, but I guess that's because he doesn't know that the FBI are on him. He gives Kelly a call, letting her know that he's alright, and to try and get her to hurry up and come pay him a visit already.
I mean, you'd love it down here. You gotta get down here.
She tells him that she'll be there soon, real soon, but we all know that it's not gonna happen. In fact, Eugene then pops up by her and tells her that they have to call the cops and turn David in. Now that everyone knows that he did it anyway, it just makes sense to turn him in and save their own skin. Plus, Eugene reasons that David is so in love with Kelly that he wouldn't dare turn on her.
Because if they don't find someone, they're gonna be looking for everyone.
It's a little dirty, but actually a pretty good plan. Kelly tries to stop him, but there's nothing she can really do. And indeed, we cut back to Mexico, where we follow some local cops tracking David to his hotel. Lucky for David, he chooses at that moment to step out of his room for ice, managing to avoid him for just long enough to discover what's going on. Once he sees that the cops are after him, David flees that hotel where he finds a boat to jump onto. The cops try and chase him, but this just sees him tumble into the water as that boat pulls away. Score one for David. Back in America, Eugene's at the bank with his wife, explaining complexities of the situation. They can't just go spending all their money at once. They have to lay low and stay out of sight for a while until the heat's off. Honestly, might be the smartest thing Eugene has said in the whole movie. A shame then that he breaks this plan right away. We go from him warning his wife to lay low, to a montage of them buying literally everything under the sun. From a brand new house to new cars to new clothes to, well, everything. Obviously, Eugene's version of laying low is a little different than yours and mine, but Eugene still has David to deal with. He knows that so long as David's out there, then he won't truly be safe. Therefore, when David calls Kelly again, he tries to get her to find out exactly where he is. This doesn't go so well. David's using Eugene's old wallet, and when it falls from his pants, he finds Eugene's ID. Up until now, David had no idea who Eugene was, but a quick reading of the license changes that.
Ha! Ha! Well, he doesn't look anything like I thought he'd look, that's for sure.
Eugene overhears David say his name, and now he realizes that he's really in trouble. If he's gonna get rid of David, he's gonna have to do it himself. Or better yet, hire someone else to do it. And he does. We cut back to Eugene's home where he's speaking with the hitman Mike McKinney. It's a pretty straightforward meeting, seeing as Eugene really just wants Mike to track down David and kill him ASAP. The only real sticking point is how he's gonna do it. Mike really doesn't want to use a gun. Like, he really hates using guns. But Eugene talks him into it, and soon enough, Mike's on his way to Mexico Mexico for a holiday and some light assassination. The cops are closing in on David as well. They speak to the security guard who reveals that David was close to Kelly before she was fired. They track Kelly down and ask her how close she was to David. She tells them that they weren't very close, but they're not buying it.
David Gant may have held a torch for you.
Word on the street is that David was in love with Kelly. How she didn't know this is beyond me. But the news hits her hard, and soon she's excusing herself to cry in the bathroom and probably feel a little guilty at sending a hitman to kill David. Speaking of hitmen, Mike McKinney arrives in Mexico and tracks David down pretty quickly. First, he buys a gun, and as you can see, he's really not very gun savvy. He settles on an old musket, which does exactly what you'd think it's gonna do. It backfires on Mike as soon as he takes that shot, but this only spurs Mike on. He doesn't like using guns anyway, and soon enough we have ourselves a foot chase, although David is actually on rollerblades, which allows for him to skate away. That is until he stops off to make a phone call to Kelly, which gives Mike enough time to catch him and knock him out. When David comes to, he's in a bathtub, and Mike is sitting there watching him, knife in hand. David's asking what's going on. Mike tells him flat out that he's gonna kill him. Nice and slow too, for extra tension. But then David's ID falls out of his wallet, and when Mike goes to pick it up, he sees that they have the exact same name and birthday, and were born at the same hospital.
That's my name too.
Little does Mike know that David is using a fake ID, in which Mike's own ID was used, but David decides to keep that to himself for now. And it's a good thing he does too, because Mike sees this as a sign and realizes that he can't kill David. They're basically brothers. So they bond a bit and run through the ocean in a Rocky IV kind of montage, and then leave it at that. Now, in a moment of bravery, David calls up Eugene and demands that he wire him $6 million. David tells Eugene that if he doesn't, he'll go to the police and turn himself in, while also making sure to tell the cops that Eugene was very much involved in all of this.
Gant! Son of...
Back in America, Kelly had a moment of conscience and feeling bad over what she did to David. She goes shopping to buy some clothes, but unfortunately, she chooses David's fiance's store to shop at. The moment that she sees Kelly in there too, well, she attacks her and they have a little scuffle. It's 2 days later, and David heads to the bank to get the money, only to find out that Eugene didn't transfer anything to him. He calls Eugene in a rage, but Eugene reveals that he's kidnapped Kelly, and that if David doesn't head down to South America and lay low, he's gonna kill Kelly. But before he tells David that, he reveals that Kelly was on her way to see David before he caught her.
I know all about your little rendezvous.
Well, this is all David needs to hear. Knowing now that Kelly actually does care for him, that he might actually have a chance, he decides that it's on him to try and save her. Maybe David will be a hero after all. He arrives at the airport where he bumps into Mike McKinney again. They have a little chat and Mike tells David that he's headed off to go and kill someone else. It's played for laughs until David sees that Kelly is who Mike is gonna go kill. Mike knows that he can't kill someone who David loves so dearly, so in an act of true friendship, he gives David his plane ticket. Back at Eugene's place, and he's having a big party. Little does he realize that the neighbors are working with the FBI to try and prove that Eugene was involved in the robbery. The neighbor's name is Doug, and the feds strap him up with a wire and send him into the party. But David is also at this party, disguised as a waiter. He sneaks inside and we also see that he has a gun. Using that gun, he finds out where Kelly's being held hostage and overwhelms the guard. Then he ties him up using a little too much tape and breaks through the door. From there, it's just a matter of sneaking out with Kelly by his side. Unfortunately, the guy David tied down has managed to hop over to the party, even though his entire body's taped up. Eugene realizes that something's going wrong. Not that it makes a difference, as pretty soon David is announcing himself. A quick explosion caused by a misfired gun gives David and Kelly a chance to make it to the garage, where they steal a car and make their getaway. Oh wait, nope. They run headfirst into the gate and smash their getaway car before even leaving the property. Eugene catches up and tackles David, trying to make a break for it. He throws David outside and pushes him up against a random van that just happens to be there. And that just happens to have the agents inside. With David up against the van, he tries to calm Eugene down, asking him for a little respect. He was the mastermind behind all of it after all, and Eugene needs to know that. But Eugene won't hear it. He tells David very clearly that he's the mastermind, and David is just a pawn. He says it several times actually, with the FBI listening in clearly, and that's all the FBI needs. We cut to the next scene where Kelly and David are both in orange prison jumpsuits as they get ready for their trial, but they both seem somewhat resigned to it. And what's more, it's pretty clear too that Kelly is starting to come around on David. And David?
Oh, I'd rob 1,000,000 banks for you, Kelly Campbell.
I guess David didn't really learn his lesson. So he goes to prison, where it turns out that he's sort of famous among the other inmates. So famous, in fact, that the prison turns out to be a bit of a breeze. We then cut forward some years to when David gets out of prison, only to be picked up by none other than Mike McKinney. He's beyond excited to see David, so much that he even got the same haircut. The two jump in Mike's car and take off into the sunset. As they're driving, text appears on the screen that reveals this entire thing to have been based on a true story, one of the largest cash money heists in the history of America, performed by possibly one of the dumbest men in America, David Gann. And that wraps up our recap of the film Masterminds, produced by Relativity Studios, released back in 2016, directed by Jared Hess. It stars Zach Galifianakis, Kristen Wiig, and Owen Wilson. $17 million is a lot of money. What would you do if you had that much? Let us know in the comment section below with that hashtag cinema recap. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, till next time.